Good morning, Michelle. How's everything?
Hey, good morning, Lindsay. Everything is good over here. How are you?
I'm feeling great today. It is a gorgeous day. It's going to be a hot one in Denver, same in New York City.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, it's really bad. Here, it's really bad. I don't really want to be outside. It's really been very, very hot. So,
Oh, that's wild. Well, we'll just stay in and podcast this morning then in that case,
yes,
Michelle. That sounds good to me.
exactly. So, Lindsay, I have a question though. Do you ever go to a coffee shop or like a hair salon or somewhere that they only take a cash tip and you don't have money for one?
Yes, sometimes that happens. I never carry cash anymore. Cash
Yeah.
is cash is no longer king for me.
Yeah.
It's just gone. There was some transition at some point in the 2010s or 2015, mid 2010s, where I just stopped carrying cash entirely. And so now, but honestly, Michelle, most of the places I go to usually have that point of sale machine, like either a
Mhm.
square machine or
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
the iPad where you just type it in. So the tip
Yeah.
gets added. You select how much you want to tip, it gets added. So
Yeah.
usually I don't have to give a cash tip. What about you?
It's funny, but I know exactly those machines that you're talking about, but the coffee shop that I go to most frequently, right down like it's like a block away, they don't have that, and like the place where I get my hair done, they don't have that, and like those are places where I frequent, right?
I love
So,
that. I love those kinds of
um
places that don't have that.
yeah. Yeah, some of them have, like, an opportunity for Venmo, and I'm I'm a mess. I like when I had my old phone, my phone was too full of stuff, so I had to get rid of Venmo. So I had to, when you get into that panic mode of you have to delete all your
Yeah. And
and,
Venmo was the one that went,
yeah,
right?
and then right, exactly. That was one that I had to say goodbye to, and when I got my new phone, I mean, it's been a year and I still never got Venmo again. So, like,
Yeah.
I just don't have it, and I'm like, "Oh, I have to get it," and then I forget,
Oh
but,
my gosh. Yeah.
but then I'm like in a situation, and I mean, this can happen. So I mean, yeah, they don't, this coffee shop, they don't do tip on a card. Sometimes, like, have you ever seen it where like individual people who work there will have their Venmo up or something like that? Like my hair salon, they'll do that too. Like you can Venmo a tip, but sometimes, like I get stuck. It
Right.
doesn't have to be for that reason, though. I mean, sometimes you just don't have money, or if you don't carry
Yes.
cash. So we're
Yes.
going to talk about this situation today and tipping in general and kind of the direction of tipping.
Yes.
So
What we're
lots to discuss.
Yeah, Doug, we'll talk today for our listeners about what tipping really, really, really matters, and you absolutely have to do it. And when can you get away with waiting till next time or
Yeah, yeah,
doubling up
yeah,
next time or an IOU type deal? Do we have a
yeah.
question from a listener, Michelle? I think we do. Or no, we
For
don't have a
this one,
question today.
this is just on my life
Oh,
experience.
I just saw a hi Lindsay in the notes, so I figured that was a listener, but it's not. It's you.
Oh no, that's me. I'm saying
Okay.
hi. Hello.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it. So that is what we're getting into today, Michelle. But first, would you mind if I call out a couple of our amazing listeners? Actually, not going to do that because I closed the window. We are disorganized today. Well, I want to thank all of our listeners who left a review for All Ears English. I saw some listeners in China, some people in Brazil. Guys, if you have not left a review yet for All Ears English, make sure you leave a review. And Michelle, I want to encourage our listeners to hit follow on the podcast now.
Yes.
Yes. All
Perfect.
right.
All
Good.
right. So guys, if you want to hear more about tipping, go to listen to way back. Episode 288 is to tip or not to tip at an American restaurant. That is the question.
Well, what's funny is that, that one would have been recorded in 2015 or so, and things might have changed. I mean,
They're
certainly the point of
true.
sale machines weren't as common as they are
Yeah.
today. So in that time when we recorded that, I don't think we had the point of sale machines or they were just getting started. You probably
Yeah.
would have had a register with cash more. Are we that old? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because sometimes, like, when I think back to 2015, right, it seems like yesterday, but then you think about, I mean, even just since 2015, so much has changed. And
Yeah.
when you think back, it feels like the Stone Ages, right? Like,
Yeah, it does.
even when I first moved to New York, I had to find my directions, and like I didn't really have a smartphone at that point, and
Oh my
it's just
gosh.
so it's just it's so crazy how much can change. And like in a few years, we'll look back at this and be like, we didn't even have, like I went on my first vacation ever with Dan. I mean, I still had my digital camera. I didn't have a smartphone, and that doesn't seem like that long ago.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, let's get into it. We're going to have a
Yes.
good article recommendation from the New York Times that came out recently as well. I'll mention that in just a minute, Michelle.
Hmm.
Let's break it down. What do our listeners who might be living in the US, this advice today is specifically for American culture. I do want to say that because
Yes.
I don't really know how tipping works in other in well, it works differently. It's
It
kind of a
works.
little
Yes.
more voluntary, I think, in places like France, maybe the UK, I'm not sure, but today is about American culture, okay?
Yeah, I think we are notorious for having
For
the
big tip
tips be
tipping culture, yeah. Mhm.
having tipping culture exactly. Exactly. So well, let's talk about. I mean, I have a question. So like, I was talking to you about coffee shop
Yep.
and salon, but what about restaurant? What if you don't have money to tip in a restaurant? Is that okay? Can you?
No.
Right.
No. So, I'd say the restaurant is pretty much the only place I could think of that it's mandatory. Right? Can you think
Yeah.
of any other scenarios? Most other scenarios are you really, really, really should. Like when you go to the hairdresser, you really, really, really should. But you would actually get chased after by the waitress or waiter if you don't leave a tip at a restaurant.
That's
Okay?
yeah, I mean, that is like a blatant
Yeah.
slap in the face, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is like a, "Oh, something went wrong." So, like, you can't just say, I didn't like, I don't have money for a tip." It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you can
No.
certainly, but it's not great. Like, so you don't wanna do that. And now most restaurants, you can just leave it on the credit card, and that's fine, but, like, there are some restaurants that take cash only, so you would need to figure that out. But like if I were in a situation where I needed cash to tip at a restaurant,
Yep.
I would have to go to an ATM. Like I couldn't just say, I didn't have money.
Yeah. But the
Like that
thing is
it's
yeah.
really important.
It's important. I mean, the good news is that, most places that require a cash tip are going to be cash only for everything. So you'll
Right.
already know that
You'll
when you
know.
walk in the door, you'll think about it, you'll see a sign, or you'll be running to the ATM while the rest
Right.
of your party is sitting in and hanging out. So I don't see that as a huge problem, right? If they only
Exactly.
take cash tips, usually I'd say like 95% of places take credit card. It's kind of just the mom and pops. And
Yeah.
usually, actually, the places that take cash only are kind of cooler and more authentic, actually.
That's true.
Um,
That's
but
true. That's true.
yeah, yeah,
So or some places that have a credit card, then you have to pay a credit card fee, like,
right,
like a certain
right.
percentage or whatever. So I mean, but in a restaurant you really have to tip in the moment. But what do you do if it's a place like a coffee shop? So um there's this place, yeah, down the street, like I was telling you. I'm definitely a regular. We've talked about that before. And
Regular.
also the place where I get my hair done. So the coffee shop, the hair salons. So
Yep.
like coffee shops, like they often have a tip jar. Um, Lindsay,
Yes.
do you usually like to put like cash directly into a tip jar, or do you like to tip the person like specifically, or do you just put in the jar?
Well, the thing is, it depends on the place. I don't really carry cash anymore, like I said. So,
Yeah.
I don't put like change in tip jars. So now, like I said, everywhere I go usually has that point of sale, including my local coffee shops. And so it'll give me a choice. And, this is something that
Yeah.
actually maybe now would be a good time to mention an article in the New York Times.
Uh-huh.
Michelle, we want to send you guys over to an article. We'll leave the link in the blog post if we do a blog for this episode. It's called well, we'll leave the link for you guys. It's To Tip or Not to Tip, written in 2022. All right. So it's talking about how now a lot of these coffee shops are using these point of sale systems, but it's putting a whole new layer on the pressure to tip at a coffee shop. It is nice to tip, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not required to tip at a coffee shop. It's different from a restaurant. And so what ends up happening when you have the point of sale system, there's always someone behind you. and I
Right.
and we're also in a moment where it is nice to tip. We're more aware of different
Yeah.
situations, economic situations
Yep.
post
Yep.
pandemic. And so we feel a little bit more pressure, at least I do, to add a tip. I still think you have the option to just, what we do sometimes is maybe one day we won't tip and the other day we will tip.
Right.
Like we'll alternate sometimes, you know what I
Right.
mean? Because again, it's not required at a coffee shop. So,
Right, right. Like, and I especially feel like if I'm a regular somewhere, if I
yeah,
know, then I have that human connection. Like the barista at the coffee shop that I go to, he's so friendly. Like
that's cool.
he's always and I
And he
always
knows your
go.
name probably, right?
Yeah, and he knows my son, and like the two of us, and
That's cool.
one day he called me bestie, and like, we're
Yeah,
like
that's very
just like
special.
so nice, so friendly. And so like when you have that human connection, I think it's, you know what it is. I think when you have a waiter or a waitress, you also kind of have this connection with them. I mean, you're talking to them
Yes.
over a while. If it's a coffee shop where you like are just quickly going in and you're
Hustle in,
never going to
hustle
go in there,
out.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
really like have that
Yes.
connection. That doesn't mean that they don't deserve a tip or that I don't tip them, but like
It's a little different.
especially yeah, it feels different when you like really know the person. So so this is a situation that I've run into with this guy where I feel bad that or awkward that I don't have the cash.
Okay. So do we have recommendations for
Yeah.
our listeners here then in this scenario if you don't have the
Yeah.
cash? Yeah.
So, I mean, one thing you can do is just not say anything and give more another time, Lindsay, like you said. Like,
Yeah. That's fine.
sometimes you might not give, sometimes you might give, and you just figure, it'll kind of even out.
Mhm.
One time I specifically handed him a tip, and I like specifically it was a larger tip because I had so frequently gone and not had money for him, and I
Yeah.
actually brought it up to him, and I was like, I wanted him to get this tip. Like, I didn't want to put it in the jar where I
Yeah.
specifically wanted it to go to him. So I said,
Yeah.
"Thank you so much for your great service. Always sorry, I always forget cash to tip you." I said something like
Yeah.
that.
The hard thing is some restaurants, sorry, cafes, we're talking about cafe. Right now, guys, we're talking about counter service where you walk up to the barista,
Mhm.
you walk out with a
Right.
coffee. You're not talking
Yeah.
about sitting down and ordering a coffee in like a diner. That would be tip mandatory. This is a little different, right? This is kind of more of a gray line. But I think most of the time, I'm assuming most of those places just split the tips across all the baristas.
Mhm.
If you put it in the jar, and I
Yeah.
don't know if they can, like, physically accept money when they're serving coffee is the one thing. Like, put it in their hand, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, if their hands are not clean, but I don't know, Michelle, it's
Oh. Oh, that's oh,
it
I didn't even think about that.
yeah, like, if they're serving
Um
food and that kinda thing. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Interesting, interesting. Yeah. So, but I wanted it to go directly to him. So yeah, I said you can say something like, sorry, I always forget cash to tip you. Here you go. Just something. Or the other thing you can do
yeah,
is say something in the moment, right? Like
okay.
I've done this too. I've said, "I'm so sorry, I don't have any cash on me. I promise I'll make up for it next time."
Yes, I love that.
Especially if the person kind of knows your face. They'll,
Mhm.
it's fine.
Yeah, guys, write that down. Okay, Michelle, the next scenario where it's a little fuzzier, it's not as clear cut as a restaurant, is a salon. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so I had this situation. The moral of the story is I need to start carrying cash and I need to download Venmo and my life would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
So um but yeah, I've been in that situation where like I didn't have cash, and I actually ended up saying to her, "Oh, I can tip you on the credit card," but then I know that I said, "Is it better for you if I tip you on the credit card, or do you want me to tip you directly through Venmo when I get home so I can use my husband's?" And she actually said she preferred Venmo because, I think with the credit card there are fees that
There's
come
always
along.
fees. Mhm. Yeah, for
She was
sure.
like, "I think that would be better for both of us," and I was like, "That's true." So, like I said,
Yeah.
I basically said, "I'm so sorry, I don't have any cash on me. Is there any other way for me to tip?" That would be like a general thing if you just didn't know.
Mhm.
Or you could say, would it be okay if I Venmoed you a tip later? I'm so sorry I forgot cash." So that's what I ended up doing.
Okay, I like it, I like it. It's good to communicate with the person. Venmo's an option, cash or credit card at the moment. Okay.
Mhm.
Anything else we should know about the salon before we go into the role play, Michelle, or the general topic?
Yeah, the salon is a tricky one, right? With I think like we were talking about this before the episode, sometimes it can be hard to know what to do about a tip, especially if you're a regular and you know the person and
Yeah.
you want them to like you and you like them and you like their work. I like the girl who does my hair. She's really good, and and she does a good job and she answers my questions over and over. And
Yeah,
then
for
this
sure.
guy, he's so nice to my son. So like, um I think it's hard to know, like, what tip will they be pleased with, and you don't wanna over tip, and you
Right.
don't wanna under tip, so I end up
Yeah.
usually, um, over tipping. What about you?
Yes.
I mean, you
I
were talking about getting your eyebrows done, right?
I usually when it comes to sitting in a restaurant, I just round the math very broadly, so I tend to tip well at a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
25 to 30% usually at a restaurant. In my the place where I get my eyebrows done, I was a little because these places, they can actually change the default tip, like where it starts. Usually you have a choice like 15,
Yeah.
20, 25, maybe
Yeah.
30, which would be a typical spread. Don't you think, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I went into the place where I get threaded. I love her. She's fantastic. She's great and she's awesome. But I noticed like it started at like 30 or 40%. I'm
Oh,
like, whoa,
wow.
whoa. And then it went up from
Wow.
there. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm
What
panicking
was
in
the
the
highest
moment.
percent?
I
Like
don't remember. I
90%?
think it was 50. I think it went up to 50, 55. But I'm thinking, whoa, okay, what's happening?
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and so I tried like typing in my own tip and then it got all messed up and we got confused and it ended up being a mess. But that's kind of what that article talks about actually in the New York Times, guys, about places might be taking it into their own hands a little more than maybe makes sense. So there is a fine line. So
Mm.
don't forget that you always have a choice in a restaurant. You don't
Yeah.
have a choice to not tip, but you have a choice of how much you want to tip, right?
Yeah.
But you have choices here, and it should be reflecting their service. And it sounds like with your buddy in the cafe, he's a great guy, he knows your name, he's giving you a great service, so he deserves a great tip. If the service is lackluster, the tip should also be a little lackluster, I think. I mean, I don't know if that's a hot take, but
No, I
in the
mean,
end,
I
it
think I
connects to service. That's the point. It's gratuity.
right, and I think I no, I think that's a good point, but I think, yeah, like, lately, I think there's been more guilt because of things like
Yes,
the pandemic
absolutely.
and these people working
Absolutely.
so, like, I tend to tip more even like yeah, I would feel worse about leave way worse feel about, like, leaving a not so great tip, even if the service wasn't great, like, I still feel bad, like, I wouldn't
Yeah.
I don't know, I, like, can't do it.
So you leave a great tip, like a great, like a 35% tip,
No.
even if the service is bad?
No, I
Or
wouldn't. No, 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 not that
okay.
great, my
So
gosh,
you
but,
leave like
like,
an average tip, maybe like
y
20% if the
yeah, so,
service is bad.
y I mean, if it was horrible, I mean, it was just terrible, that's a different story, right?
Of
But,
course.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, if someone does give particularly, good consistent service, I
Yeah.
just wanna make sure that I want them to think I'm generous as well. I mean, I
Of
want them
course.
to know that they're appreciated,
Yeah, and it feels good to be generous too. The
it
other thing
does.
that's tricky in a restaurant is you can't always nail down. If you had a bad experience, you can't always blame that on your server. A lot of
Right.
times it's the kitchen staff, it's the chef, it's the maitre d', it's the host, like all these other factors. And the waiter or waitress has been trying their very best. So it is a loaded topic. This is,
I think the main thing is, like, I don't know how you are, with, like, feeling this way about service. If somebody is kind and,
yeah.
like, acknowledges that something went wrong, maybe, things are taking a long time or there was a
Yes.
mistake, then then anything can go wrong, and I still wanna give them a good tip. It's all about,
Yeah.
like, being kind. Like, Dan and I have this this joke, like, if somebody is rude, Dan will, like, play we have this game where he'll be like, "Oh, what would the manager say?" And then we'll do, like, "Oh," like, he'll pretend to be the manager. I can't explain this game.
Okay.
He'll say he'll say, like, "I'm so sorry for that service, the food will be," I don't know, we say, like, what should they have said if somebody wasn't kind? I can't explain this game, and I'm sorry I'm telling this story.
That's okay. All right, Michelle, let's go into the role play here for our listeners. Let's keep moving in the episode.
Yes.
So here I am the customer and I work
Yeah.
at a coffee shop where you are a regular. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. Wait.
No, no,
I'm a
no,
customer and I work at a
you are
coffee
the
shop.
customer wait, and
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm I. You are the customer, and I work at the coffee shop where
Okay.
you are a regular. Okay,
All right. Let's do it. Here we go.
let's do it. Alright. Okay, so here you go.
Oh, thanks so much. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I don't have any cash on me. I promise I'll make up for it next time.
Oh, no worries at all.
I'm really sorry about that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, have a good one.
You too. All right. So there, in that case, we showed you what you could say if you just don't have the cash to tip,
Yeah.
and if, of course, there's no option to credit card tip. Which again, I think nowadays more and more you're going to see that point of sale system where you can just
Yeah.
tip on your credit card, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And what did you I say exactly, Michelle?
You said, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I don't have any cash on me. I promise I'll make up for it next time." So it sounds like you're a regular.
All right, I love it. All right, Michelle, we got to wrap up the episode, but
Let's wrap it up.
what's the takeaway for today for our
Yeah.
listeners?
Guys, recognize people for their work. The US has a huge culture of tipping, which can
Yes.
be frustrating at times because it can cost a lot of money, but it's important to make sure people get appropriate tips, and be
Yes.
kind.
Yeah, we could dive into on another episode, Michelle. We could talk about tipping on tours, which is also super important. We always try to tip our tour guides. Like if you do a food tour in the
Mm.
US, if you do like
Yes.
a historical tour,
Yeah,
we
walking.
really try to give really good tips in that case. So there are other places where we could talk about where
Yes.
tipping gets a lot more nuanced, right? More,
Love
yeah,
it.
different
Let's do
scenarios.
it.
So
Alright.
we'll come back to that another day, Michelle. You have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.